He'd been adamant about the whole idea of it right from their very first meeting, and he had visited her at her college campus once every week, and she'd come home every single weekend to be with him. They'd fallen in love immediately, spent all of their time together, and had quickly decided they didn't want to live without each other. Then, to Alicia's total surprise, her father hadn't objected to her seeing Philip, and neither had her mother, Tonya, which was strange, specifically when it came to her father, because he'd always been so overly protective of her when she dated, partly because he didn't want to accept that she was a full-grown woman, and partly because he didn't believe any man was good enough for his daughter. But that was then, and this was now, because today, her father was standing proudly in an Armani tuxedo, smiling ear to ear. So are you ready, baby girl? Ready to make a lifelong commitment before God and everyone who loves you? I guess so. You guess? Don't you know? Alicia sighed. I guess I'm just a little scared is all. That's understandable, but as long as you love him, you'll be fine. You do love him, right? I do, Daddy. I love him with all my soul. And he definitely loves you. No doubt about it. I knew it the first time I saw the two of you together. Alicia smiled and her father kissed her on her cheek. And I love you too. You're getting ready to get married today, but you'll always be my baby girl, and I'll always be here for you. You remember that, okay? I will, and I love you too, Daddy. I'll always love you, no matter what. Tears filled her father's eyes, and just then the double doors slowly swung open. It was time. The harpist and flutist played their instruments softly and beautifully, and Alicia saw Philip standing at the altar, waiting patiently. She could tell how at peace he was, and she wished she could feel the same way. She wished she could be sure that they really were going to live happily ever after. So she stood there, unable to move her feet. She stood in place for as long as she could, but when her father nudged her arm, she finally stepped forward. The church was absolutely gorgeous, and based on everyone's facial expressions, so was her pure white sleeveless ring acra wedding gown made in silk satin at the top and tulle at the bottom. The top was covered with a finely beaded overlay, and the multi-foot chapel train trailed gracefully behind her. Her mother had begged to differ, but this dress had been a steal at $5,000, and Alicia was glad she'd chosen it. She was glad she had a father who thought she deserved the world, a father who had generously given her a $100,000 spending budget to cover her wedding and reception expenses. He talked a lot about how she was his firstborn and how he wanted her big day to be something she could cherish for the rest of her life, and she was happy to say the setting couldn't be more flawless. But as she walked farther down the aisle, passing all the exquisitely arranged white floral designs attached to each pew, a feeling of sadness overtook her, and now she knew the real reason she was so uneasy. She didn't want to feel this way, but she couldn't help who she was and what she'd been used to her entire life. The best of everything, regardless of what it cost. What she wished was that love simply could be enough, and that her designer clothing and other luxuries didn't mean or matter anything in the least. But they did matter, and she knew Philip couldn't get any of those things for her, not on his salary. Maybe in a few years he might be able to, especially once he wised up and came to the realization that heading up a megachurch was the real goal he should be working toward. But for now, he'd made it perfectly clear that he was happy right where he was, happy and dead set on learning as much as he could from his new father-in-law, well before branching out on his own. Now Alicia wished she'd thought this whole thing through just a bit more thoroughly, but it was too late. Too late for any turning back or changing her mind. Too late for anything except taking their vows and saying, I do. Thank you all so much.